Next up, custom car builder, an all-round mechanical marvel, Jimmy DeVille shows us how we can all easily upgrade our wheels.
This time, I've got a Ford Puma in the workshop. The Puma was a spiritual replacement for the much-missed Ford Capri. But by the time the Puma was launched in 1997, the world's appetite for sporty coupes was on the wane. But don't discount this car, because its low and light design, coupled with a great chassis, gave it fantastic handling. And 20 years on, a decent Puma can now be yours for under £700. Few cars for that money offer so much driving fun on the road, or, like this one that I've stripped out, the track.
Ford did in fact produce a racing Puma, which was called, funnily enough, the Ford Racing Puma. It is, however, quite rare and relatively expensive. It's a lot easier and cheaper to get your hands on a bog-stand one, a little bit like this one here.
Admittedly, the Racing Puma did go a bit better than the standard one, but what it really did well was stop better.
You see, the Ford Puma was meant to be an affordable car, and that meant that back in the late 90s, although you got disc brakes on the front, on the rear, you got drums. I mean, come on, that is ancient technology, and it's no wonder the Ford Racing Puma, with its disc brakes front and rear, stopped a lot better.
So today, I'm going to give my Ford the stopping power it really deserves by fitting discs, a modification many vehicles of this era with factory-fit drums could benefit from. With more powerful brakes, you can brake later into a corner, giving you that performance edge. And disc brakes will also have the ability to cool faster than the older sealed drums, so less brake fade. Prior to beginning the upgrade, I took the Puma out on the road and tested the G-force it pulled under braking. Once fitted, I'll run the test again to show me the improvement with discs.
The great thing about Fords is that a lot of Ford parts are interchangeable with other Fords, and I've discovered that the rather excellent Ford Focus ST disc brakes will fit straight onto the Puma.
This disc conversion will set you back about 500 quid, and trust me, that's going to be a value for money in terms of the performance advantages.
All you need to do this job is a fairly basic mechanics toolkit and this, a brake bleeding kit. Now, because I've got this, I could do the job on my own, but today I've got my trusty mate Paul with me, so I'm going to do this side while he does the other. All right with you, mate?
Yep.
Right, it's time for us to get cracking.
Once the wheels are off, undo the big nut in the middle of the drum and off it comes. As you can see, the drums work by pushing the two brake shoes against the inside of the rotating drum. Not the most efficient way to apply a braking force compared to a modern disc.
All of this is going to go, but I do need to reuse this nut, so I'm going to keep this somewhere safe. To do this job, Paul and I are using a lift, but it's not needed. We're just doing it so we can work at a comfortable height. You could do this job on the ground using axle stands and a trolley jack. And you buy yourself, if you're a budding mechanic, a set of those for under £100. Well worth doing.
Next, the handbrake cable needs to be pried free of the brake shoes. And with that disconnected, the brake shoes themselves can be removed. The next step is to disconnect the brake pipe. The brakes are operated by pumping brake fluid down the pipe under pressure. So, to stop it leaking away, the rubber section must first be clamped. The rest of the assembly is removed by taking off a few simple bolts that attach the unit to the mounting point.
Before I can fit the new brake kit, there's two jobs left to do. First job is to change the handbrake cable because the end won't fit the new brakes. This one will. The second job is just to clean this all off with a wire brush so the new brakes go on nice, square and tight.
Now we're ready to fit the new disc brakes, starting with the spindle. This fits onto the suspension using the same bolt holes as the drum assembly. Next, the hub goes on,
Paul, chuck us the big bar.
which is secured by the big nut I removed earlier. Then the disc itself slides onto the studs of the hub. Then the caliper, complete with brake pads, slides over the disc and secures with a couple of bolts. Bleeding the brakes involves pushing fresh brake fluid through the pipes, which removes any trapped air.
OK, Paul, pump it.
If there are any air bubbles in the pipes, the brakes won't work properly due to lack of pressure in the system.
It's really important that you check your brake fluid regularly. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, which means it absorbs water. And when it absorbs too much, it doesn't work properly. And even worse than that, if you had an accident because your brakes weren't working properly, your insurance could be null and void.
Finally, it's time to get those wheels back on and we're ready for a test drive. Ignore the interior, this Puma is a work in progress.
OK, so already I can feel the braking on this car is a lot sharper than the standard Ford Puma.
But I want to find out exactly how much more responsive these new brakes are.
So on this phone, I have, oh, there we go, a G-Force app. And that's going to tell me exactly how much of a G I pull when I brake. Science, I know. We know the standard car pulls 0.7 of a G when stopping at its optimum rate. What will this car pull now? It's got uprated discs. There's only one way to find out.
Caution, you need an empty road to perform this sort of test.
And on. 0.78! We have just beaten this by 0.08. Now, I know that's not a great deal, but I have just done that in absolutely heinous conditions. The roads are wet, but not only that, they're greasy and my tyres just want to lock up. And I've beaten it by 0.08. Now, that might not sound a lot, but that means that in perfect conditions with new tyres, this thing is going to stop on a dime. This was a job well worth doing.